You don't need more time to think. You already know. Your salary comes in, your bills go out. Your life stays exactly where it is. Not falling apart, not moving forward. You're not confused. You're stuck on salary. And the reason this hasn't changed isn't lack of effort. It's what you keep avoiding. Avoidance number one, admitting the model doesn't work. Let's be direct. The salary model promises three things: work consistently, earn more over time, and life will improve gradually. That's the deal you were sold. And if that deal actually worked as promised, most people wouldn't feel quietly trapped after years of effort. But look at reality. What actually happens is this: you earn, you spend, you commit, and now you need the income. Not because you're irresponsible, but because your life is built around continuity: rent or mortgage, bills, lifestyle expectations, social obligations. Your entire structure optimizes for stability, not progress. So when discomfort appears, you don't question the model, you adjust inside it. Different job, same structure. Different pay, same dependence. Because admitting the model doesn't work isn't a technical realization, it's an existential one. It forces a question most people avoid. If this isn't the path, then what exactly have I been building all this time? That question threatens your past decisions, your identity, your sense of responsibility. So instead of asking it, you wait. Not because you're lazy, but because waiting preserves coherence. Your life still makes sense, even if it isn't moving. Avoidance number two, calculating the real cost of time. You track money carefully. You know your expenses, you know your savings rate, you know what comes in and what goes out. But there's a calculation you avoid. You don't calculate years traded, energy depleted, opportunities declined quietly, life postponed indefinitely. Because salary makes time feel infinite. It's exchanged gradually, month by month, paycheck by paycheck. 1 year of not yet doesn't hurt. 5 years feel busy and productive. 10 years disappear without warning, and nothing collapses. That's why urgency never arrives. There's no alarm, no crisis, no moment that forces you to stop, so you assume you're fine. But time is the only asset that never replenishes. You can earn more money, you can restructure debt, and you can rebuild skills. But you cannot reclaim decades spent waiting. Avoiding this calculation keeps you comfortable, but it quietly places you further behind than you realize. Not financially, existentially. Because while money stabilizes your life, time defines its direction. And avoiding that truth is what makes every other avoidance possible. Avoidance number three, pretending real inflation is manageable. You don't need charts to know inflation is real. You feel it every day. Groceries cost more, food portions shrink, rent rises faster than your pay, insurance, transport, healthcare, all heavier. Your life tells you the truth long before the statistics do. But then the official numbers appear. Inflation is only 2 to 3%, and that number becomes a psychological relief. Because if inflation is only 2 to 3%, then your situation is still okay. Your salary is still enough, your plans still make sense, so you accept the average, even though your real expenses don't live in averages. Housing doesn't inflate at 2%, food doesn't inflate at 2%, your future doesn't inflate evenly. But admitting that creates a problem. Because if real inflation is much higher than you were told, then the uncomfortable truth follows. What you're doing right now may never catch up. And that's terrifying. So instead of confronting it, you avoid it. You tell yourself, I can handle it. It'll stabilize. It's just temporary. I'll earn more later. Not because you're lazy, but because admitting the gap feels worse than enduring it. Because once you admit this path isn't enough, you're forced to ask, then what is? And when you don't yet have that answer, pretending becomes safer than seeing clearly. So year after year, you absorb the pressure quietly. You feel tighter, more cautious, less willing to risk. Not because you're irrational, but because inflation didn't just raise prices. It raised the cost of being wrong. Avoiding this truth doesn't protect you from inflation. It only protects you from the responsibility of responding to it. Avoidance number 4. Letting go of the life that proves you're doing okay. Salary doesn't just pay your bills, it validates your life. It tells you and everyone around you that you're responsible, stable, normal. Your lifestyle becomes evidence: the apartment, the car, the routines, the spending patterns, even if they quietly suffocate you. So when the idea of change appears, it doesn't feel like opportunity, it feels like regression. Downsizing feels like failure. Simplifying feels like giving up. Pausing feels like falling behind. Not because those things are wrong, but because they threaten the image you've built. An image that says, I made it. I'm fine. I didn't mess up. Letting go of lifestyle commitments means admitting something uncomfortable. That the life you're maintaining costs more freedom than it gives. So you avoid the thought. You tell yourself, this is just adulthood. This is how it's supposed to feel. Not because you love it, but because the alternative feels socially dangerous. Avoidance number 5. Taking responsibility after you already see the truth. Before clarity, ignorance protects you. You can say, I didn't know. I was just following the path. I was doing my best. But once you see the pattern clearly, salary dependency, time erosion, inflation pressure, something changes. You can't unknow it. And now the weight shifts. The question is no longer, why is this happening to me? It becomes, what am I choosing to tolerate? That's when avoidance intensifies, because responsibility without a clear exit plan feels heavier than confusion. You start consuming more content. You analyze, you think, you wait. Anything except deciding. Not because you're incapable, but because once you act, you own the outcome. Avoiding responsibility after clarity lets you stay comfortable without lying outright. You know something's wrong, but you're not ready to be accountable for changing it, so you delay forever. Avoidance number 6. Being the person who no longer fits in. This one is rarely talked about, but is one of the strongest forces keeping people stuck. Leaving the salary path isn't just a financial risk, it's a social one. When you think differently, people notice. Friends start asking questions, family gets uncomfortable, colleagues don't relate. You hear things like, you've changed. Why can't you just be normal? Don't overthink it. Everyone lives like this. And suddenly, the cost of growth isn't money, it's belonging. Being different means being misunderstood, being judged, being talked about, and being excluded quietly. So even when you want to try something else, build something else, become someone else, you pull back. Because fitting in feels safer than standing alone. You choose normalcy over alignment, acceptance over truth, comfort over evolution. Not because you lack courage, but because humans are wired to belong. Avoiding difference keeps you socially safe and financially stagnant. Chapter 7. Seeing the trap doesn't mean escaping it. Yet. Here's the part most people misunderstand. Seeing the pattern doesn't mean you're ready to leave it. Awareness isn't an exit, it's a disruption. And disruption feels uncomfortable because once you see clearly, you can't unsee it. But clarity doesn't demand recklessness, it demands honesty about the next step. Not quitting tomorrow, not gambling your life, not pretending certainty exists. What changes first is how you relate to your situation. You stop pretending this is just how life is. You stop confusing patience with delay. You stop using salary as emotional safety. And quietly, your behavior shifts. You begin to separate survival from experimentation, reduce fixed commitments before chasing ambition, build skills that don't require permission, create optional income, not just higher income, and value time before status. Not dramatically, but strategically. You stop waiting to feel ready and start acting while uncertain. Because readiness is not a feeling, it's something that emerges after movement. Most people think escape starts with confidence. It doesn't. It starts with reclaiming choice, even in small, uncomfortable ways. Final truth: the money mirror. You didn't fail with money. You adapted perfectly to a system that rewards waiting without direction. The salary model didn't trap you by force, it trapped you by making stillness feel responsible. And the longer you waited, the more reasonable it felt to keep waiting. The mirror doesn't judge, it doesn't motivate, it doesn't comfort, it reflects. If you want to understand how money quietly shapes behavior, how dependency forms without crisis, and how leverage is built without fantasy or panic, you can explore the Money Mirror Playbook. Link in the description. Because the real trap was never salary. It was avoidance disguised as wisdom. The mirror never lies. The question is, now that you see the pattern, will you keep waiting or finally choose differently?